Hello, hello, and hello. Welcome to Pardon My Vlog. This is your president speaking. No, not at all. I'm just being silly. This is a response to Dan's vlog of last week, where we were once again talking about agency. And I feel this should be the last week of this. So I'm going to draw a line here. I think we should stop it at this. So I'm getting in the last word, so screw you, Dan. Okay, first of all, clarification on agency. In your vlog, you seem to have misunderstood one point I was trying to make. It's not the choices the player makes, it's choices the character makes. That's the important difference. Because agency isn't a video gaming term, it's a, I believe it's a literary term originally, though it might have also just, it also has uses in film. It's one of those broad analytical tools, that the character has choice. And those choices on the characters impact the world. No matter if they're right or wrong, are meaningful in some way. So I'll just bring up an image here. This is a fairly typical Skyrim quest tree. I think Skyrim is sort of the atypical example of this kind of thing among Western games. I'm not as knowledgeable on JRPGs as you are, Dan, so you can probably tell me how different they are from this. Look at the options you have there. This is atypical, sort of do this thing, this thing, and maybe have one or two options. I don't actually remember this quest from Skyrim, so I don't know how you collect these people's money. I assume you sort of browbeat it out of them or kill them. Is there a way you can just pay for them? Maybe that's a moral choice you can make. Or maybe that comes up in dialogue, I don't know. This kind of organisation quests is very inorganic. And I was writing up for today, and something occurred to me. Even when you have a vocal protagonist, and I'll get into the definition of that later, because that's going to be the later part of the topic, your question from the last episode, you're not the one who makes the choices that often, are you? If you think about it, most often when you're, say, in a party, and you've got your, leader guy and other party members, they'll come up with options and then you choose between them. Now, if you would like to dramatize the typical conversation that would happen in a game when furthering quests, objective, or creating a new one between two characters, I think we should go to the cake festival in Cerulean City.
Well, I think we should go see Kraftwerk in Pallet Town.
Well, what do you say, Red?
Yeah, what do you think, Red?
So, comedy Nazi aside, and obviously that's a hyperbolic example, but that's really how the conversations go back and forth in games a lot of the time. And I just wonder why that is. Why can't we have the protagonist, who is a voiced character, go, fuck you guys, I'm not going to Pallet Town or Cerulean City, I'm going to Ember Island for, I don't know, crocheting competition or whatever. Now, this kind of segues into the next bit I want to talk about, which will eventually get to what you are asking me about. The concept of audience proxy. Almost every kind of media has an audience proxy of some kind. Basically, that's someone who goes, what that? I don't know what that is. Tell me what that is. Or doesn't even say that much. It's simply the point at which things are explained to the audience. Now, often this will be done via a silent protagonist. In fact, the vast majority of video game characters are silent protagonists. But everyone from Doom Guy to Gordon Freeman, and many more in between, all silent protagonists. And because they are such an audience proxy, you're often seeing directly from their view. You can't see anything but maybe their hands a lot of the time, in first-person games definitely. So you are very much immediately that. You are that person. And the world can explain to you and infodump to you all they want. Now, you do get other instances of audience proxy, which I'll get onto in a minute. But I do wonder why there's such a reliance on the silent protagonist in video games. Admittedly, early on it was clearly because, well, originally because we couldn't have that complex a narrative. The narrative was in the manual. Then it was to save on voice cost, I think. I don't know. I can't say on that one. So, but we're now at a stage where such things don't matter. So why do we keep the silent protagonist? Why do we keep having this silent, bumbling fuck? Now, one thing that a lot of video games do is they use what I call the Steve. I stole it from a Let's Player I'm very fond of. The idea of the Steve is it's the generic grizzled white guy. Now, Steve, you know, has typically got a sort of grizzled past, probably drinks. Not, he's a cookie cutter hero, but he's always sort of a tall, muscular, middlingly handsome but still grizzled white guy with shortish hair. And sometimes they add little accessories, so maybe he has a robotic arm, sometimes he wears glasses, sometimes he's Duke Nukem. But there's not much to a Steve. And that's a prime example of an audience proxy because the average video gamer, in the estimation of the companies, I emphasize that, is a Steve. He is a, or wants to be a Steve, I should say. He is a, Steve is the white male ideal, if you will. Masculine, rugged, but entirely non-threatening. Probably why you see so few relationships in video games. It's entirely non-threatening. The other day I played Gone Home. Excellent game for those of you who want to play it. Very narratively based game, but the main character is I'm going to call it a semi-silent protagonist, though she never speaks other than once in a phone message. She does sort of give snarky little hints from time to time. You know very little about this character other than that she's come back. She's an outsider. And that's the most important thing about the silent protagonist and the audience proxy is it's automatically an outsider perspective. Narratively very important. And I just wonder, why is there this reliance? Is it just we don't want to do the extra effort? So let me explain the narrative usage. Almost anything with a vaguely complex world. So most sci-fi, fantasy, even I think vaguely touching on the abnormal will have an audience proxy. Anything that you couldn't go to any random person on the street and ask about. So, even if you're telling a story about, I don't know, the intricacies of golf, you'll have an audience proxy in some manner. But so, the audience proxy will be an outsider to the world, who other characters can bounce stuff off of. And this is in everything. So, just think of a few examples. Ben Browder's character Crichton from Farscape, one of my favourite sci-fi shows. Billy West's Philip J. Fry from Futurama, or Titus from Final Fantasy X. These are all audience proxy characters. Having an audience proxy creates conflict because you don't know the rules. So it's a character that's allowed to make mistakes. That's why we often make the audience proxy the protagonist. So the audience will be directly involved with the action and will be directly, but can still be directly explained to, though this is often leads to info dumping, which no one likes. Now I move on to your question on my opinions versus a blank slate character versus a character with a past. Now, the very simple answer to this is they work in their own situations. But for which character I prefer? Obviously, the one with the development. You know, a blank slate is nothing. It's entirely what I project upon it. You know, so Steve in Minecraft, in my head canon, he's a survivor of a post-apocalyptic war, but that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing, well, there's very little in the world to support that. So I'm projecting all that potential backstory onto him. There's nothing grounded in the material. Whereas Adam from Deus Ex Human Revolution, not the best character, a total Steve, but he has a past. He has a personality, as granite-like as it is. Admittedly, I couldn't think of a better example off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But he's got a personality. He's dubious about the transhuman efforts of his bosses. He has a previous relationship with the chief scientist, Megan Reed. He's jaded. He used to be a police officer, and he left for various reasons. Though that's a background, and then it's filled in later on. That that paints a portrait of a character, not a particularly deep character, but a character. There's more that I can get interested in than just a guy standing in a forest. That for me is the difference. Now, we can talk about their effectiveness. That's very different. Now, the main difference in the effectiveness of these two things is a silent protagonist immediately puts you in the world. It drags you in because it's more accessible, and certainly for me in a first-person perspective, it really gives an immediacy to the world. Now, despite the game's many, many flaws, Skyrim does this brilliantly. There is a definite immediacy to the world that you instantly feel like you're there. Not literally, but it feels like a cohesive world, even when the dragons are flying backwards. It feels like a cohesive whole of a world that you could feel like you could kind of bumble through. Whereas the other kind of protagonist does distance you. You have to work that much harder to get into the character. Because, well, you have to get into the character as well as the world. You have to work that much harder, which actually I think might be a good thing for making us work harder with our video game narratives, because almost all video game narratives are incredibly safe. When was the last time you saw or played a video game that did anything at all risky or controversial in its narrative that wasn't just a lol, let's be edgy? So, I mean, games like Hatred, really for that kind. When was the last time we saw a video game really deal with the issue of love or complexities of relationship that weren't in an incredibly gross, total common denominator way outside of the indie sphere? I know that's a huge caveat, because once I said that, I could think of 2 or 3 games in the indie sphere that did. But we never really deal with that. It's always, are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president in the AAA world? Or whatever the lower echelon of that is. But you know what I mean. There's little complexity in our video game plots, and I feel as an audience we need to strive to get more out of our video games. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Sorry this is a short one. So yeah, I'm just going to leave this here, no question for you, Dan. Start a new topic that we can go on from here. Because I think we should put this to bed. I think we need to talk about something else now. So thank you for watching and good night.